We're good to go. With the call to order, the Wednesday, January 12th, 2022, 4:15 Urban Renewal Agency agenda. Roll call, please.
Mayor Preden?
Here.
Council President Conley?
Here.
Councilor Blum?
Here.
Councilor Letts?
Here.
Councilor Ross?
Here. There you go. Hope you're feeling good. Visitors communication.
We have none.
Okay. We have a consent agenda. Need a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mayor Preden?
Aye.
Council President Conley?
Aye.
Councilor Blum?
Here.
Councilor Letts?
Aye.
Councilor Ross?
Aye.
Andrew's here twice.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
We have one item on the URA agenda today. It's discussion and consideration of a motion to extend an offer letter to the U.S. Forest Service for the East Portal property. Corey.
Yeah, I will give a brief overview of the staff report that was contained in the packet and hit some of the summary points, and then open it up for questions and discussion. But as was alluded to, ultimately before you tonight is your consideration and potential approval of an offer letter to the Forest Service to purchase the East Portal property. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with the East Portal property, it's about 14.5 acres that is located at the intersection of US 20 and US 242, bordered also by Hood Avenue on the west. It's owned by the Forest Service and has been for many, many decades. It's the last remaining portion of the 80-acre block that the Forest Service has now, over the last couple of years, determined to sell most of that property, retain a portion for the new ranger station, and this is the fourth parcel that does not have they don't have an intended use for the property. They have wanted to sell it for several years. And it was back in 2019 that the city and ODOT actually sent a letter to the Forest Service requesting that they take the property off the market because the city and ODOT both see that property as having strategic uses, strategic public uses, and wanted to make sure that we could do everything in our power to keep it in public ownership. With that being said, I referenced the 14 or so acres at the beginning, and approximately half of that acreage are the existing roadways, the highways that are there. So it's just keeping that in mind. So I will not provide all the detail and negotiation and conversation that occurred over the last 2.5 years to get to this point. But some of it was slowed due to the pandemic. Some of it was slowed due to turnover at the federal administration, and just working with not only us as a local entity, but also the state and federal governments. And finally, that the Forest Service, they've not really gone through this process in the conversation that we've been having and are now hopefully moving forward with very often. So this is somewhat unique, and they're excited about that just like we are. So the city actually a little over a year ago applied for a grant through the state and received funding for master planning that property, or at least a good portion of that property, to be a future mobility hub, basically a place where multimodal transportation sources, bikes, pedestrians, vehicles, public transit, all come together and interface and interact. And we were awarded a grant to help do that master planning effort, but it was contingent on obviously having the land under ownership or having the land under contract, essentially legally, that we will at some point take ownership. So we've been working through a lot of various details, and we're at the point now that we feel that by extending this offer that the Forest Service will accept it and we will have to move through several other steps to not only free up the funds, but enter into a purchase and sale agreement, cliche, dot the I's, cross the T's over the next few months to actually make this happen. But it starts tonight with you all approving the offer letter and us formally submitting that to the Forest Service. So again, I missed several details that I could have dove into deeper. Happy to answer questions or just support you all in discussion and consideration of the letter.
All right. Thank you for that opening. Before we have any motions, I think we need to discuss this and make sure that everybody's on board and see if anybody has any questions. Nancy, you want to go first?
No, I'm just really thrilled that we're finally to this point where we can make an offer. It has been a rather time-consuming roller coaster over the last 2 years. The price is higher than we had anticipated. However, I think with the follow-up positions that will happen, it's a perfectly acceptable amount. And I'm looking forward to moving forward and buying this property.
Can I add one thing?
Please do.
Briefly on that. So I forgot to sort of emphasize, and everyone knows that this is an urban renewal agency meeting. And so the reason why we're having this discussion is that, you know, we have previously discussed to some extent at the staff level and with council members offline that moving forward with predominantly urban renewal dollars to purchase this property is a recommended approach. And you know that might not mean that we use all urban renewal funds for the $675,000 of this offer, but the majority of that would be for urban renewal dollars, as the majority of this property is located within the urban renewal district. And when we did update the plan a little over a year ago in the fall of 2020, we talked about, and we did set aside funds for a downtown amenity and some kind of investment that we could make in acquiring land in downtown and supporting additional development and activity. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that we were discussing this through the context of the urban renewal agency predominantly, but also the city. I mean, it's always a little awkward. They're connected, they're sort of one and the same, but legally they are two separate entities.
Okay. Councilor Ross, do you have anything to ask or comment on? Gary can't hear you. You're still on mute. Round 2.
There we go.
There you go.
Not really with it today. You know, I kind of want to echo what Nancy said. This is, to me, is a prime opportunity to anchor that end of town with some assets that will benefit the community as well as the neighbors of that area. And I agree the price is a little higher than we wanted, but I think that in the long term, the value to the community will exceed the purchase price.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. Councilor Letts?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions about how we arrived at that price. I saw in it was the letter, it was saying that it was kind of on par with price per square foot of the other parcels that were sold. And just a couple of clarification questions. Was that the price per square foot or acre, whatever, at the time of sale for those properties, which has been a few years now, or current value? And also, when we're calculating that, are we factoring in that half of the property is, were we using the number of 14.5 acres, or were we using the 7.5 acres, being that half of that property is very important but developable?
Yeah, good questions. My understanding is the price per square foot is commensurate with the price per square foot at the time of the sale of the other properties, which at this point, it's a bit of a blur in my mind, but was somewhere between 12 to 24 months ago for those two parcels, the north parcel across Barkley, and then the middle parcel that's now has been approved for the Woodlands project. It's also my understanding that purchase price does factor in all of the 14.5 acres. And we don't know how much, but we know that ODOT is interested and willing to purchase the land that they need for their state highway facilities from us. And so
Okay.
at the end of the day, the city and the Urban Renewal Agency will spend, I'll say far less than net $675,000 for this property once we have sold approximately half of it to ODOT. And then there may also potentially be some other land that we're not going to be utilizing for the mobility hub, but we won't know that until at least 6, probably if not more like 12 months down the road, after we've fully gone through the master planning process and really looked at all the acreage and really understand how to use it for its highest and best use for our community. So great questions. And that number, I mean, to be candid, that number was essentially provided by the Forest Service. So if we wanted, we could prolong this process and offer a lower number. However, all signs point that it would A, be rejected, and B, it might take us 3 months to hear that it's been rejected. So I don't think that that is advantageous or strategic in terms of the negotiation and the process we've been going through. I don't think that serves us any benefit.
Sure, that makes sense. I don't want to elongate this process any longer than it's been. So that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Blum?
I agree with Gary in that this is more than we had thought we would end up paying, although we don't even know how much we're going to end up actually being out of pocket for it. But at the same time, the value of the amenity that we're going to be able to have is really difficult to even monetize. And losing that opportunity would be a real discredit to the city if we allowed that to slip through our fingers. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with this project.
Thank you. And I can echo all of that. And the last, really the last thing I'll say is when it all is said and done at the end of the day, this is still a deal, a really good deal. I think it's the value, although we won't be able to put dollars on it like Councilor Blum said. I just think that this is a great opportunity. Bygones be bygones. We wish we could have got it for a little lesser price, but it's really not that bad. And I think we're going to recoup some of it in the future. And so I totally agree. So
Can I just add a couple more things?
Please do.
Because I know we have the time. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
go
can't help
ahead.
myself. And it is relevant. So this was obviously a key strategy in the Sisters Country vision.
that is correct.
And a tremendous amount of progress has been made on that in the last 2.5 years, 3 years. And this is kind of the final, as I mentioned, cornerstone of that property redevelopment. And then I think it is important because we have alluded to recouping some value either as dollars or as potential projects or improvements for that $675,000. And what I mean by that is the draft letter from the Forest Service that was included in the packet that does outline that the dollars from the sale will stay in Sisters to help fund the ranger station. I know we'll all shake our heads and put our head in our hands saying that it's mind-boggling that the federal government can't just function and fund new projects like this ranger station, but it is not a foregone conclusion that the funding will come through to build this ranger station. We don't know when that, they don't know when that will happen. So these dollars will help go towards contributing to make that project a reality. And obviously the Forest Service presence and a new ranger station will be a huge amenity, are huge amenities for our community. The final piece that we worked with them on was getting some additional improvements along Pine Street constructed in conjunction with their improvement project. And as the federal government, they can quickly and more often than not do play the card of supremacy to say that we are not like every other developer, and we are not subject to your local land use code and your development requirements. So they have agreed to construct those improvements, and they've agreed to pay connection fees for water and sewer service in conjunction with that project. And so those are things that perhaps we otherwise would not have gotten. And so to consider those in this offer and this deal, I think is important as well. So it not only has value, but it is a legitimate gesture of the partnership to move this forward. So
Okay. Thank you.
I think that's it. I don't think I have
Okay.
anything else to add.
I was gonna give extra pause just in case.
I do want to add something.
Okay.
Having sat in on, I think, the majority of the discussions, I found it interesting that the city ended up being the mediator, for lack of a better word, between ODOT and the state. And that's how we arrived at this position with this price, is that we didn't have our hands tied like the other two entities. And so this was the path forward. And the goodwill gestures that Corey mentioned, I think, will come back to us in a multitude of ways for being able to coalesce and make this offer and purchase this property for the community. So that's all I wanted to add.
It made me think of one more thing to say.
Okay.
So just along those lines, I kind of skipped over the 2.5 years of where we were in 2019 late 18, early 19, and where we are now. And so, previously, we had sort of put ODOT in the driver's seat to submit an offer and potentially acquire the property, keep the land they need, and then sell us the remainder, kind of the opposite of the arrangement we're doing now. And to your point, Councilor Conley, that did not work. That did not move forward. And not to fault any of the people that are involved in those organizations, but partly due to bureaucracy, their hands were just tied. And so if we do not take the initiative to make this happen, it will not happen. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind, both in terms of the opportunity to acquire the land and then the opportunity to, like you said, develop it as a future community amenity. So.
Okay. Any further discussion, anyone? No? Looks like we could entertain a motion.
I move to extend an offer letter to the United States Forest Service for the East Portal property in the amount of $675,000 and authorize the city manager to execute the letter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, Carrie, please.
Mayor Preet,
Aye.
Council President Conley,
Aye.
Councilor Blum,
Yoo-hoo.
Councilor Letts,
Aye.
Councilor Ross.
You betcha.
All right, unanimously passed.
So we do want to talk next steps a little bit.
Okay, please do.
Okay. Carrie, do you want to take the lead on that? You want me to just do it?
You can take it.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So Carrie and I have been working, researching, talking with Elaine Howard, our urban renewal agency consultant, and just generally laying out some next steps over the next 2, 4, 6 weeks. And so our plan for the 26th is to have another urban renewal agency meeting with a resolution amending the urban renewal agency plan, sort of rearranging or shifting some additional funds into the downtown amenity area. So that would be an important step. And then we'll be working with Joe as well to prep a supplemental budget. That probably won't come on the 26th. That'll likely be either the first or second meeting in February. And then we'll also be waiting, and from my understanding, it won't take long to prep, but we'll be waiting on a draft purchase and sale agreement from the Forest Service. And so that'll be another item that we ultimately need to bring back. And that'll be the official legal deal between the city and the Forest Service memorializing the sale. And then beyond that, it'll be sorting through easements and sorting through deeds and all the transfers that occur with the property. So this will be a reoccurring topic for several months. And our plan is to move swiftly, but also make sure we're obviously dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure we're not going too fast. So we're aiming to bring some stuff back on the 26th. It might be the first meeting in February. Either way, if not every meeting, certainly every other meeting, we'll be bringing items back to you for consideration and discussion and approval.
Excuse me, do we have to, or should we notify the other agency members? In the past, when we gave out URA funds, we didn't do that. I'm not sure the policy and the procedure with that.
Yeah, good question.
So you don't have to. So what we're doing with these resolutions are minor amendments. And so there's no, in a minor and major amendment with the URA, there's no notification rules. I know, however, Corey has reached out to Chief Johnson on this particular issue, who seems to be the most vocal, involved taxing district we have. So we don't have any legal obligation other than doing the resolutions. And actually, technically, we don't even have to do the resolutions, but we're choosing to do them to be more formal in the process.
And I think what we can do just as a gesture or communication is send it to, the top 4 impacted taxing districts or whatnot, just to make sure we're communicating with them. Like Carrie said, Chief Johnson reached out. He was also the one who kind of paid the most attention and was the most involved when we did the plan update a little over a year ago. So we've communicated with him sort of where we're at and the intent, and he didn't have anything negative or any comments to share. So it's a good idea, and yeah, I think informally we could or should notify the school district and the fire district, but beyond that, the regional organizations they're not paying attention. They're supportive. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the local groups, we want them to feel like they're their money's going into it and they should be part of the process.
Yep.
At least kept informed.
Yep, well said.
Okay, any other discussion on this? As it's the only agenda item, I'm going to move to close the meeting, and we'll have a 5 o'clock workshop in about 20 minutes. Thank you.